How do you know what you're meant to do with your life? Full disclosure, my perspective on this comes from being a Christian. I believe in God. I believe that every single person on earth was designed by God and intentionally made. And there were things that each of us have been called to do, that we were designed to do, that God created for us to do. And that informs my worldview, my view on this topic, and I am going to be speaking from that place. So I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on this. Not all of them are specifically Christian, but I am speaking as a Christian from a Christian place. So if that's not your thing, skip this video. But I do think that my advice and my views apply to everyone, whether you're a Christian or not. I am someone who charges headfirst into what I feel my purpose is in life. And when I know what I'm supposed to be doing, I just set everything else aside and dive in and go for it, because if that's what I'm supposed to be doing, that's what I do. So I get in this conversation with people a lot. How do you know what you're meant to do with your life? The answer to that is that no one has the same right answer as someone else. You have to find your own answer for this question, which means that you have to sit down and think about it and try things and figure out who you are and what you actually want. But I think that God made each of us for a purpose, and I think He also called us two things to do. And I think that they are different. So everyone has a purpose for their life. And the way I view purpose is it's like the overarching theme. I'm a writer, so you get some writing terms in this explanation, but the purpose is like the overarching theme of your life. And the things that we're called to are like the specific things, like the jobs, the tasks, the situations. And I think they're different, but I think what you're called to do serves your purpose, which serves God. So I think that the place to start when you're trying to figure out what to do is to ask yourself two questions. The first one is, what do you want to do with your life? Because we have desires put in our own hearts and things that we like, and that's for a reason. You like things that other people don't. I believe that life is supposed to be something that you like. Even if there are lots of things about life that you don't like, you're supposed to like your life and like build yourself a life that you like. And so a really good place to start is, what are things that you like to do? And the other side of that question is like, what are things that you feel fulfilled doing? Because I like eating chocolate, but I don't feel fulfilled while eating chocolate, and I'm probably not going to turn eating chocolate into a job. Although nowadays, I'm sure I can make some weird social media account totally devoted to eating chocolate and monetize it and make it a job, but I don't want to eat chocolate as a job. And like, that's something I like to do, but what do I actually like to do with my life? What makes me feel fulfilled while doing it? Because chances are you're going to spend a lot of time doing whatever you do with your life over years. So you have to like doing it, but you also have to make sure it makes you feel fulfilled. I think that's part of the role of your job. It's part of the role of anything that you give a huge chunk of time to. It better be fulfilling, or else you are going to feel empty all the time. And no one wants that. The second question to ask when you're thinking about what are you supposed to do with your life is, what are you good at? Now, I have heard people talk about this and be like, what are you great at? And honestly, I feel like sometimes the things that you're supposed to be doing, you're not great at right away. You have to work for it. And the answer to both of those questions is not necessarily the same thing. So think, what do you like to do and what's fulfilling? and what are you good at, and be specific about it. So if you're seriously trying to figure this out, what are you supposed to do with your life? A lot of things come naturally to me that I don't enjoy doing. And some of them inevitably I will end up doing with other things that I enjoy doing. You know, it's just part of it. But there are things that I know that I do not want to devote my life to because I don't like it. For instance, being in a classroom setting. I like the concept of teaching. I like training people in things, you know, like hands-on practical. I can explain things to people and talk to people, but I do not enjoy being in a classroom. Standing in a classroom, being a teacher is not something that I want, even though I'm really good at teaching people. Teaching and explaining things comes really naturally to me, but I don't want to be a teacher. And I know that because even though I'm good at it, I do not like it. The consistent schedule, showing up to the same place. A lot of things about being a teacher just do not appeal to me. A lot of people encourage me. A lot of people who do not understand what I'm doing with my life encourage me to teach because I would be good at it. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because that is not what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, but also I really don't enjoy it and I would just hate my life. That is not dissing teachers at all because we need teachers. I love teachers. I loved my teachers, but I do not want to be a teacher and I know that. And honestly, that's good clarity because that is something that I know I don't want to do. So it is not an option when I think about what do I want to do with my life. So the importance of being specific when you're thinking about what you like and what you're good at. The importance of it is because what you mean when you say things is different than what other people mean when they say the same things. I travel a lot and I have a friend who I met while traveling. I met her after she did a 10-month backpacking excursion through Central and South America, where she was going to like remote places in the middle of jungles to try and be able to like observe indigenous people in their natural places and see really rare animals. And I love this because when I think about, oh yeah, I love traveling, she also would say, oh yeah, I love traveling, but the things I do while traveling are not the same things as what she does. And if I had to do the things that she did while she traveled, that she chose to do and were fun for her, I would have a miserable time and honestly probably die. If I walked barefoot through the Amazon River, like I'm pretty sure I would die. Maybe I will test that theory one day and challenge myself to go outside of my comfort zone, but you know what, like I'm good. That's not what I consider fun. That's not what I consider anything I want to do when I travel. And so we're different even though we both like traveling. Something else we both say is that we want to like help people and help the world, you know, with what we do with our lives. We were talking and she said that she was considering, or like it sounded fun to her, that one of the indigenous tribes that she met in the middle of the Amazon forest that had like no contact with the outside world offered her the chance to like teach them, like their kids. They would provide for her and she could stay and teach them. And her reason for that not being a good option was that it would take hours to get to like the nearest city that had like modern communication, and she wouldn't be able to see her family that often or like communicate with them, and if anything happened it would be really hard to get a hold of them. When I heard that story, I was like, that's not my number one reason for not wanting to live in the middle of the Amazon and teach these Amazonian children. I can think of like 500 other reasons why I do not want to do that. Even though I want to travel, I want to live in random places in the world, and I want to help people, that is not any way that I would envision myself doing that. And I think that highlights why it's so important for you to be specific and think about what you actually want to do and find fulfilling, and what you like doing and what you're good at. Because the desires that are put into our hearts are different than the desires that everyone else has. And sometimes when we want things, like it feels like everyone else wants it too. And then it feels like there's not enough if everyone wants it. And so then there's not enough for us, so we can never do what we wanted to do. I feel like there's that idea, especially with like trends, trending, everyone wants it, even from like a shopping perspective. You know, when everyone wants the same thing, it sells out and then people don't get it. But I think with purpose, it's not like that. What you want is to do your purpose, but your purpose is custom tailored to you. And the things that you want, if you start getting specific about it, are different than what other people want, and it looks different than what other people want. And even if it's the same, like even if you really want to teach second grade, there are tons of second grade teachers that are needed. We need to stop thinking like there's not enough for us. There's not enough chances, there's not enough openings. Sometimes the reality is that, you know, there's one promotion and you don't get it, and that is real. But when you're thinking about your life in terms of like what your overall purpose is, there are so many different ways to achieve that. And if you don't know what your overall purpose is, like that's fine, but like all the things that you do reflect it. But it's also not a rush, so if you haven't figured it out yet, that's fine too. Don't not do what you really want to do because you assume that you can never do it. Deciding that you know the ending before you're at the end is the worst thing that you can do. If you're assuming that you won't get the chance and that, you know, the opportunity won't come along, and so you're not even going to try, or you're going to give up when you don't feel like God is telling you to give up, but you're just giving up on it, that is the wrong thing to do. Know what you want, know what your priorities are, figure out what your purpose is, or what you're called to, or what you really feel like your life is trying to give to this world, and then have the courage to take the steps to pursue that. Don't decide that it's not going to work out, especially when you haven't even began. So many times people are like, oh, I never did that because it probably wouldn't have worked. When you listen to like older people talk about their regrets, and they're talking about things that they wish they would have done, but it just wasn't practical, or it wasn't reasonable, or it would have never worked out. And it's like, how do you know it's not going to work out if you don't try? Because even if it doesn't work out, it might lead you to something different that you had never even thought of or could have envisioned. Life is steps. And so even if something doesn't work and you try to step and you can't, then the place that you do step might be different than what you thought it would be, but it might be different than what you had thought would even be for you to begin with. There's a saying about how your purpose usually scares you. Purpose is normally kind of scary, so if you think you know your purpose or a purpose for your life and it kind of scares you, that's probably a good sign. Other thing to talk about with this is, what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want with your life? There are a lot of things in life that are hard to get and require sacrifice to get to. So For instance, being a writer in screenwriting, even when you get paid for screenwriting, that's not like a stable job. It's like by project. And so although there can be stability in a season, there's no guarantee that like you will get paid a steady amount forever. That doesn't exist in screenwriting. I think it's really important to think about what you're willing to sacrifice for what you want to get, because some things take sacrificing things. Not everything in your life comes with the same security or the same guarantees. If you get a corporate 9-to-5 job, you know your hours, you know how much you're getting paid, you know when you're getting paid, and you know your benefits, and you have like that security. Like there are so many other things where you don't get that, and so some people are not willing to sacrifice that. I'm talking about jobs a lot right now, but what you're meant to do with your life does not have to be a job. It absolutely does not have to be a job. And I think even if you figure out the job or like the career that you want to do with your life, you still have so many areas of your life to figure out what you want to do with your life. Like it's not only a job. Your life is not your job, which is actually a very American idea. I was in Bali recently, and one of my tour guides was telling me that Americans work too much, and in Bali they work, you know, enough, but then they want their free time and they want to like their time to enjoy life, where in America people just like are their job and like devote so much time to their job. I was like, well, yes, Americans especially do put a lot of identity in their job, and it's not like that everywhere, and it doesn't have to be like that for you. Like that is a choice that we make. Don't cave to society pressure. Anyways, the place to begin when you're figuring out what you're supposed to do with your life is really to think what you like and find fulfilling, what you're good at, specifically like what you want, the specific things of all of those categories, and what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. Because if you want big hard things but you are not willing to sacrifice time or energy or money or, you know, anything to get it, like you're not going to get those things. When you're thinking about your purpose and your career and your calling, what do you feel in your heart is for you that you're supposed to be doing with your life? And what are ways that you can picture yourself doing those things? Now, there will probably be many ways that you cannot picture that those things end up happening in your life too, but a good starting point is like envisioning yourself doing those things. What can you envision yourself doing? Because life is not meant to make you miserable. Life is hard, but it's not meant to be like something that you dread waking up to every day. All of your decisions add up to living. And so what are you going to decide to do? You get to choose. I think that career is less important than purpose. If you have figured out your purpose or can figure out your purpose, I feel like that is so important, because God cares more about you as a person than he cares about your career. He cares about your career, but he cares about your heart more. I think that's a sign that we should care about our hearts more than our careers, even though it's hard. So there is a starting point for you to hopefully figure out what you're supposed to do with your life. However, you also don't have to know everything right now. There's actually no way for you to know everything right now, even if you really want to know everything right now, because God is a God of surprises. Life will surprise you. Things will come along that you were not expecting and had no way to anticipate. And that's okay. That's just called life. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you in the next one.